Welcome to the new Overlords Podcast. With me, as always, is someone who has trouble in the desert because she has too much rhythm. It's Sema. Hello there, Sema.
That's right. You can't have rhythm in the desert, or you attract these giant bad things.
Yes, the giant
So I understand.
Shai-Halud. Bless his coming and going. I have no problems because I have no rhythm whatsoever. So
Yeah, I really don't either.
I naturally walk without rhythm. I certainly dance without rhythm.
I know this already, but if I didn't know it, I would know it now that you've been playing more Dune Awakening.
Yeah, well, we knew this was coming. Every other show for the past 6 weeks have been
Right.
Dune. But we have to do the show a day early this week because I'm doing some traveling. And with that, we will not have a show next week. So to get it in, we're doing it a day early, and it'll probably be a little bit shorter. And the key thing I've been doing over the weekend we thought would be fun to talk about is the actual release, the head start, the fancy, how does somebody call it? The fancy boy version where you pay extra money to get to play a few days early. The full release actually happened today, so that's available as well. But the release happened on the 5th for the head start, and I've been playing since then quite a bit. But before we get into that, there's also quite a bit of game news this week.
Good news, everyone!
So first up in the news, the Switch 2 is out. That was kind of like the big thing on the 6th, and a million games had their Switch 2 release. Their Switch 2 editions come out. Some remakes, some remasters, some free upgrades. Some I can play my old Switch games on the new Switch 2. Some you have to pay $10 to get the Switch 2 up-resed version. Bunch of that going on. The weird thing that Sony did, which is just noteworthy and everybody's just sort of like shaking their head about, is they didn't release any of the Switch 2 review units to any of the media organizations. So none of, like IGN, nobody got them. So as a result, they didn't have any articles written ahead of time for the launch. And they still wrote articles on launch
you
day.
mean Nintendo, not Sony?
Sorry. Yes, Sony certainly didn't send out review units for the Switch 2.
It
Damn
took me
Sony.
like all this time to figure that. Like, what?
Yeah. So Nintendo.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
they didn't need to, or they didn't want to, or they had supply chain questions, or they just wanted to make sure that they had the best edition out and didn't want to send out the review units. Whatever the case, it kind of just released, and there wasn't a lot of fanfare around it in the media on like any of the gamer sites or anything. Not that Nintendo cares.
Not that it needed it.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's still sold out, and they knew it was going to sell out. Maybe that's like that. Maybe that's why they didn't care. So yeah, it's out there. It's also,
Or maybe they felt, it would be, not the front that they wanted to put out there to like get everyone hyped and then say no, but you can't have one.
right. It's also definitely just a Switch 2. It's not like, Switch Switch new version 20 future Switch. It's like a Switch. It's almost like a Switch 1.8. It's because it's like everything that the Switch was, with like a couple extra things that people don't really care about. It's better performance, better graphics. Great.
The Switch Extreme is going to be like you mount it on the wall and it's like a huge like flat screen TV.
Well, the dock plugs this into your flat screen TV. It kind of already does that.
People. One stands on this side and puts those buttons, and one stands there.
Yeah, it requires two people to pick it up and hold it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a webcam. Nobody really cares. It's got the Joy-Cons are magnetic now instead of clicking, and that's magnetic in a cool way, which is fine. One of the Joy-Cons, you can pop it off and then like turn it into like a little really teeny tiny mouse. Nobody really cares. So it's a really nice device. Everybody who's gotten one and was able to get one that didn't get like sold out and not get their device is really happy, but it's just Switch 2. So cool. Good for them. Good for you. Then we had Summer Games Fest. We'll talk about those. And then tied to Summer Games Fest in some way, I wasn't really clear on why it gets tied to Summer Games Fest, but the Xbox Showcase also got announced. And then Sony's State of Play separately, not tied to the Summer Games Fest, because the Summer Games Fest channel hosted the Xbox Showcase. I don't know why that they got to. Jeff Keighley's got Satya Nadella calling him up and say, get our video on there. Sony did not. Theirs is not hosted there. But Sony, so it's like Sony talked about Death Stranding, Walk on the Beach, whatever that one is. New Death Stranding is called. That is releasing relatively soon. In fact, I think I had it in our coming later notes, didn't I? It's coming this summer. Maybe, Death Stranding 2. Oh, I think that did show up in the actual Summer Game Fest videos. So that did show up in the Summer Game Fest videos. Sony State of Play also had a separate video. But that is coming this summer, only on PlayStation. So dead to me. I won't care. I'm interested.
I mean, you can only buy so many gaming consoles and handhelds.
I don't have a PlayStation. I'm not going to buy one. When it comes to PC, I really kind of want to try that game. I kind of want to play it. I think I will be playing it this time around. I didn't play it last time around. It was memed on too hard. That made me not all that interested in it. You know, it's a walking simulator. It's too weird. It's too slow. That was kind of probably unwarranted, but that's what I sort of went after. I sort of believed maybe. And then after the fact, 6 months, a year later, yeah, it's amazing work of art. So, but Shrimp says it was also all of those things. So yeah, which is fine. I am even more fascinated though with how it's developed, where it's come both culturally and then like story and art. I want to play the new one. We shall see when that one comes out in a year or whatever, with the PlayStation exclusive. The things that caught my eye, let's go over those things that I was interested to see. This is one in particular, Sema, that we both played version 1, right. Grounded 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is coming out. I'm up for this. I'm in. I liked Grounded. It was a well-formed, even if you take away the story and just kind of like ignore those parts, it's a well-fun survival crafting building game.
Right. And did Grounded have mounts? Because this game definitely has mounts.
That
Grounded.
I think is new, where you can actually ride some of the bugs.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is new. They get shrunk. So it's the kids again, and they get shrunk again. Is what happens. Which
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, that's what you can't have a Grounded game and have them not be shrunk. I mean,
shrunk. Right.
What would it be? Like Sims? I mean, they're just like going to
I
school
know.
and stuff. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's like
them fighting bugs wouldn't be nearly as interesting if they were just like stepping on them.
I mean, plus, yes, exactly. The president is there, like the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids again.
Yeah, right. And it's got such that, it's weird. It's got that throwback Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibe to it. Was there ever a remake of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Because there probably should be at this point. Because there's a remake of every other damn thing.
Anyway, I do like the look of Grounded, and yeah, this definitely has it.
Yeah, so Stask's got a good question there, Sema. How many grasshoppers are in
there
this
weren't
one?
A lot of grasshoppers. The big scary things were spiders for me.
Yes.
Anyway.
And they had a very elaborate arachnophobia mode where you could bump up the tiers, and like tier 1 like turned them into just 4-legged spiders.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Tier 2 took their legs off completely, and they would still have the body and face of a spider. Tier 3 just turned them into like little gumdrops. So it was interesting. So that was cool. And then the rest of the Xbox Game Showcase had a bunch of good stuff in it. More teases on Silksong that came out around at the same time, but Hollow Knight,
they're doing their own
Silksong,
thing over there.
Yeah.
Team Cherry.
But it kind of got rolled into the news. Part of the showcase announced the ROG Xbox Ally X, which is sort of a
Their handheld.
Steam Deck-like
Yeah.
that is getting announced and showcased and that kind of thing. And I think everybody's happy about it. I think Steam doesn't care. I think they're happy about it because they're not in it to sell consoles. They're not in it to sell devices. They're in it to sell Steam and Steam games. So more, in fact, I think they have now cut deals so you can put Steam OS on any other device. So yeah, that is interesting. And I think a lot of people are interested in getting that as well, getting that device, which is cool. I'm very happy with my Steam Deck. I would probably get an upgraded Steam Deck if there was an upgraded Steam Deck, but I don't need to. And if this is better performance, which I bet it will be because the Steam Deck came out a couple years ago, I won't bother. But it's cool. It's a cool device, and having all of your Steam games in its own device is amazing. I'll say that.
Yeah.
What else did we see? Outer Worlds, which is on my radar. That's another one I kind of want to play and definitely will.
Really on my radar until it turned up this week on the Blizzard launcher.
Oh, right. And that's the Outer Worlds 1, right?
No, it was Outer Worlds 2 coming in October.
Oh,
yeah.
coming. Okay. So it's even just an ad for it.
So that's my pro tip actually. If you see a game these days, if you see a game, especially now more than ever on the Blizzard launcher or on Steam or wherever you see games, if you also have Game Pass, check before you actually buy it on one of the other platforms.
Right.
Because this game is going to be on Game Pass, Outer Worlds 2, but if you click on it on the Blizzard launcher to buy it, if you didn't check first, you might not know that. Anyway.
Right. And
you get
people
me.
do that all the time. They buy games and then like, oh, I already have this game, and now I've bought it twice, or I had it free somewhere else.
Yes, that's my life.
Also, don't forget to check your Epic Games library. I was talking to somebody else about this, that with all like the free games that Epic puts out on their store, and people who check that regularly and just get those free games added to their library. I was talking to a gamer this week, friend, family, extended family, and he said, yeah, I think I have more games on the Epic Game Store than I have on Steam, but I only play my Steam games. But Epic's really trying hard, and they deserve a little bit of store success. They have all the other success in the world. It's not like they need more money, but a competing game store would be kind of nice, and Epic would be a nice one to push the envelope a bit and push back on Valve a bit, because Valve still takes 30% of all indie games revenue. 30% goes to Valve. And Epic has just cut a new deal where for the first 1 million in revenue, they'll take 0% for indie games.
Interesting.
Which is nice of them.
That is intriguing for sure.
You saw a couple on this list that caught your eye. Why don't you talk about those?
Well, the sort of the more oddity type games for me. So like there's one called Keeper where you play as a walking lighthouse that's driven by this like wonky kooky seagull, blue seagull. And the way you walk is you have these like they look like crab legs, but you only have like 4 of them. So you're kind of lumbering along. There's no words at all in this game, but you go on this adventure of discovery of some sort, heading toward the center of the world, and all will be revealed kind of. So it's like a puzzle adventure game, but no words. So that seems, and also the art is just very appealing.
So the seagull doesn't talk? He doesn't say like, mine, mine, mine? Because that's what seagulls say. Yeah.
And then another one, At Fate's End, which is also on Game Pass. It's an action game, but you like looks like a side scroller type fighter type game, but it's got this amazing art. I watched the trailer like 6 times back to back. I was just mesmerized by it. It's almost like an old style art, but like with flowing hair, and it was really cool. But the story is you fight monsters, but you also fight your siblings, and you use not only your weapon attacks because you have a magical sword, but you also use like psychological gambits, like saying you're acting like mom right now, And I wasn't able to capture what the point of the game is. Like, if are you trying to cure your family, or why are you fighting your siblings? But I just was so mesmerized by the look of it.
Oh, interesting. So it's a side scroller
Yeah.
roguelike.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so it's sort of like cell shaded side scroller roguelike. But yeah, it's got the whole sisters vibe, and you're like collecting these cards, and your cards are ability, but they're like cards like tarot cards of your family is what some of them look like. Wow, he just pulled a sword out of his spine. That dude.
Yeah,
The
and it goes,
devil.
yes,
Oh, that's the
yes,
devil.
right. And it's like,
Interesting.
yes, sometimes his mouth just fills
You're
the whole
acting
screen.
like mom.
Sometimes, yeah,
Interesting.
Camilla Hemlock. I don't know if like your siblings might be bosses at the end of a level or something,
Interesting.
but yeah,
Some symbolism there. Somebody's got some family issues that they're working through.
or
Cool.
not working through. Yeah.
I wonder if the author's sisters are going, "What did you do?"
And I also noticed this game, or was looking at this game called There Are No Ghosts at the Grand, which seems like it's an RPG story driven kind of thing. Some really interesting music and an interesting look. It almost like my first reaction was I almost felt like the way like was really leaning into the uncanny valley, but then also it's kind of an artistic take too. But it reminded me of South of Midnight. It just looked like the story was the
That's
whole deal there.
I mean, I only
But
saw
you
a couple
also
frames from it, and that's what I thought when I saw it. South of
But then
Midnight.
there's also some aspect of like renovating a hotel. So you have this gun where you like shoot a sofa at a spot, or you shoot all the books back into the bookcase.
Boy, I wish that's how that's how decorating a house worked. I'm
Yeah.
sure
So
everyone does.
those are all the ones that I mentioned. Those are all on Game Pass, so I'm checking them out for sure.
Keep them on the list and don't buy them twice.
Right.
And then the last couple out of the sort of the Games Fest rundown that caught my eye, everyone seems to be all excited about Arc Raiders. That's
Yeah.
a squad-based extraction shooter, as made by the Wild, made by Morheim's gig joint. Mike Morheim's studio. Dreamhaven. It's a Dreamhaven
Dreamhaven.
published. It's one of the sub studios under Dreamhaven. And it looks like I'm thinking of Wildgate. That's Wildgate. So Arc Raiders is coming out in October. Wildgate is the Dreamhaven deal. So Arc Raiders is extraction shooter, and it seems like everybody's kind of getting excited, like that's going to maybe be the big next cool extraction shooter. Wildgate is that's the Mike Morheim Dreamhaven, and it's Overwatch in space. Is how I would describe it. It's team-based Overwatch in space, but not just team versus team, but I think it's like 5 teams or 4 teams. And you each have a spaceship, but then you're doing like Overwatch style running around and fighting. And then it seems like objective based, like, moving the objective, but the objective is like an artifact that you're stealing back and forth from each other, and you're sabotaging each other's ships. But definitely seems to have like an Overwatch style vibe and play focus to it. I would like the characters you're playing have little things that they say. It's high noon. So it's sort of like the whole Overwatch thing, which that's a Morheim pedigree coming out of that. I wouldn't be so surprised if it was directly like, let's do our own Overwatch, but in space. Yeah. And then Death Stranding 2 is the other one. In the coming soon list, Dune obviously out today. That's the big deal for me. I am quite excited, and it's getting a bunch of play, and a lot of people are really having a lot of fun with it. I'll talk about it in detail in just a second. Grounded 2, with the announcement, it's actually coming out on July 29th for early access. So it will be playable on July 29th. So they announced it and said, yeah, next month, be ready. Also on July 29th,
We won't be ready, by the way.
we will, you are not prepared. Tales of the Shire is coming out on the 29th. One of the big Dune streamers that I've been watching, he's very down to earth. His name is Renfail. He keeps talking in the lead up. I think he was short on content. He kept doing a couple of videos on how he'll, his streaming schedule, just to keep people up to date, because he streams every day, or, he's an actual streamer. And he said, yeah, I'll be playing Dune for, this number of weeks, and then blah, blah, blah. But I definitely will be taking time away to play Tales of the Shire. So yeah, people are interested in that. That's going to be another one. I like the style of game. It's kind of like that survival-ish kind of game, but very on the cozy end, and like the little cutesy hobbity.
Yeah, it does look
things.
like, they were going after like the kind of place you would want to live in, not the kind of place that you want to, everything is trying to kill you.
Right. And then the Wildgate is actually having a beta weekend next week. And then the early access launch, or the initial launch, will be on the July 24th. So we'll have a chance to check that out if possible. Did you know if that one was going to be on Game Pass? No, I think Wildgate might be free to play. No, I think maybe Arc Raiders is free to play. I don't know about Wildgate. So we'll see. We might be able to get some people in and just do a round or two, just sort of see what it looks. What was that other one that I was even more interested in, and I like the look of even better than this, which was where you're flying the spaceship around and the spaceship's on fire, and you're, it's a jump ship. Yeah. What happened to that game? When is that one coming out?
It is coming soon. I just saw something on it, I thought.
That was very interesting to me, and I can't wait. Let's ask the interweb. Chat room, when is Jump Ship coming out? When is Jump
Ship? You can already get it on Steam.
Out. Early access, summer of 2025.
Oh, coming soon to early access, right? Okay.
So coming soon.
But you can play the demo right now.
Oh, really?
It looks like. Yeah.
Sea of Space Thieves. Yeah, shrimp.
There's a download button on Steam for the demo, so
it looks really fun. It looks really, really fun. But that's it for the news. This podcast is brought to you by, did I say podcast? This is not the podcast. We are not talking about our cooking. We do that from time to time.
Yes, we do.
This podcast is brought to you by Gardening to Goat, the upcoming game from Contemplation Games. Got some new things coming out around that. We had a new animal that showed up on our feeds. It's the turtle. Go check that out. This podcast is also brought to you by Aleacta Est, AIE-guild.org. That is a fun community that we all play in, including the group of now like 9 or 10 of us that are in Dune Awakening. And we are all, so look in either the New Overlords Discord or the AIE Discord. You can see the server. We are on a public server. I'll explain why in just a sec as well. You can see the server and Siege that we all did manage to get on eventually. It didn't happen right away, but everybody's on there now and having lots of fun. So check that out. This is also brought to you by all of you watching, listening, and in the chat room right now. We really appreciate it. Everybody's helping us out. We're day early and we still have a big crowd in there. That's really fun. So thanks everybody. That is very cool. And with that,
Find the Fremen, wake the sleeper. You will know when it is done.
Dune Awakening. Dune Awakening. Did you hear that noise, Sema?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember,
I did.
Remember?
It doesn't sound good.
on. I gotta plug my keyboard back in. I remember I figured it out what it was. Is the keyboard. I forgot I didn't jiggle that enough last time.
Fix it. We'll fix this part in post. And by we, I mean Max. Doo-doo-doo.
There we go. There we go.
So this horse went into a bar, and the bartender said, "Why the long
Sweet.
face?"
Okay, we're back. Dune Awakening. Yeah, I've been playing it. Oh, I've been playing it. Let's play.
I don't know why,
Force
but I
Gaming's
just love it
video in
when
the
you
background.
really get into a. I really
And
love it when you get into a game like this.
I told multiple people, I sort of described it as just one of those rare moments for me that was very sort of like Christmas morning-y. Really kind of happy with just getting a new game that I'm so excited about, and getting to just dive into it. I was so hyped for it for so long, and in the lead up, and then just sort of no lifed it for the first couple days. I've definitely
It
settled
reminds
down now,
me
but
of
only in the last day or two have I settled down.
it reminds me of early days of what was it? What was the vampire one called? Vampire Rising?
V Rising, yeah.
Yeah, V Rising, and also early days of Valheim.
I can dive deep into a survival game. This is the deepest I've dived into a game in probably like a decade, since like early like Blizzard WoW launch, Star Wars The Old Republic launch. Those days I would know life an MMO launch. There we go. More things are not working. Gonna have to
That's
fix
fine.
that. I've got a video playing that's good enough. I don't have to use the keyboard anymore for the rest of the show. But yeah, so I am having a ton of fun, and now I've really gotten to. I've played enough where I've been able to even get a glimpse of the end game and see what's going on. And I've visited the deep desert. I made my ornithopter, and really got a feel, which you didn't really get in the beta weekend.
Yeah, the beta was almost like a fraction of what the.
Definitely. And you didn't really get a sense even of the whole gameplay loop and where everything was headed and where it was going to end up. And I definitely have a sense of that now, which is really fun and cool. So a couple things that my views changed on over the course of the past few days are the vehicles are much more important to the game design than I had expected. I figured they would be a useful tool, and you would get them, and it would be cool to have, you like you get a mount in World of Warcraft, and it's fun, and now you can travel a lot more, and you're flying around on your bird. Or first you get your ground mount, and then you get your flying mount, and it's a good addition to your tool set. But it's just a tool. Whereas it really changes the game in Dune each time you get a vehicle, because the barriers that you're trying to overcome from a survival perspective are, number one, crossing the sand on foot. You can do it in the very low level starting zone. You can't do it anywhere else. You can't cross on foot. So you need a sand bike. So the first time you get past all of that intro stuff, you get past the first maybe 4 hours of the game, build up your first little base, and make your first sand bike, it opens up a whole chunk of the game to you that you didn't even realize was possible. You can't even get to the second zone, which is still sort of a starter zone and was in the beta weekend, Vermilius Gap, without a sand bike. You can't get there. Because if you try to cross that expanse of desert, the worm will eat you. You create enough vibration that the worm gets summoned. You see it breach and you can run back. But if you keep trying to cross, it's too far to go. You don't have enough time to get across before the time. Basically, it's a little bit timer and vibration buildup counters that are happening behind the scenes that the worm is going to come kill you and eat you. So the worm has the high ground. Don't try it. The worm has the high ground.
And the worm always has the high ground, so just don't try it.
And the worm is invincible and inescapable if you're on the sand. The only way you can escape it is getting back to rocky ground. And that is not easy if you're out in the middle of an expanse of sand. So you get your sand bike, and now suddenly you can get to the next zone and you can get around a little bit. And you can get pretty far on the sand bike. You could probably just use the sand bike and get to all of the other zones in what's called Haga Basin, which is the main map where all of the PvE zones are. And it's a huge, huge area. It would take you 20 minutes to probably ride your sand bike from one end to the other. So it's big. It's a big area. But then your next vehicle, and there's only a few tiers of vehicles, but your next vehicle that then you're working towards, and I'll talk about sort of like the crafting tiers and what you're gathering up, but the next vehicle you're working towards is the buggy. And it's called the buggy. It's a tread-based vehicle, four treads, so it's almost like an off-road four-wheeler. And the way all of the vehicles also work is you would have to assemble the vehicle in its various components and parts. You put down a chassis, then you put a body on it, then you put each of the treads. So you put 3 treads on your little sand bike. You have to build 4 of the big buggy treads to put it on the buggy. And then you have accessory slots. And for your accessory slots for the buggy, you could put an extra, like a back seat, and then because you get a driver's seat and a passenger seat. If you put a back seat on, you could put 2 more passengers in, you could drive them around. You could have 4 of you riding around in the buggy. Or you put a big cargo storage bin on the back. And then you've got a big amount of cargo space, huge amount of cargo space. Now you can start moving things around and carrying things around. And then also you have a turret slot. And the turret slot, in the advanced version of the game, you can put a rocket launcher up there and do PvP with the rocket launcher.
So you have to choose between your friends and your stuff?
Yeah, so I didn't even build the back seat. You could put a back seat on your sand bike even. Or so the 3 things you can put on the back of the sand bike are a speed booster, or a cargo bin, or like a jump seat. So you can have a passenger or have a speed booster so you go really fast if you need to just get around a bunch, or you get the cargo bin. So having the cargo space when you're trying to move your starter base up into Vermilius Gap or beyond is really important. But then the last thing you can put on the buggy, which kind of changes the game, is a turret, a mining turret. Because before then you're doing everything by hand mining. What you can do with the turret is you go to a little radial menu and you say, switch myself to the turret. You can't do it while you're driving. So you stop at a big rock and you switch yourself into the mining turret and you mine away, and you get like 3 times the amount that you would have gotten hand mining, and you're driving around with this giant, pickup truck with a bunch of cargo space. And now you're basically, it's not an order of magnitude, but it's 3 times, 4 times, probably an order of magnitude if you include the time it takes, the speed you can drive, and the amount you can store. Order of magnitude in the amount of materials that you can start to gather. And then the final vehicle, and then there's a few variations on these of bigger endgame versions, but I'll talk about one more special class, I guess. The third vehicle then is the Ornithopter. And there's 3 kinds of ornithopters, but you start by building your own scout ornithopter. And that is another huge, huge game changer. Much more than just saying, oh, now I've got a flying mount. I can get more places. And the reason for that is you cannot get to the overmap without an ornithopter. And what the overmap allows you to do is it's a zoomed out view of the Haga Basin. So that shows up, the 2 social hub cities and the deep desert. And it's kind of just like a big topographical map view, and your ornithopter is just like a little, little toy version of the ornithopter, and you drive around. There's even like a little weird little mini game where if you sit in the map too long, you have a water meter that's slowly ticking down. If you drive your little ornithopter over a water marker on the map, it sucks up water and then it can keep going. And then there's an energy one. So you have to go to a fuel depot and suck up fuel. But if you just go to any of those places, you'll never run out of water or fuel in the little mini game. I don't even know why it's in there. I filled up on fuel with the little mini game on the topographical map. Didn't need to. There's nowhere you're going to fly or go in that mini map between the 4 major locations where you would ever need to fuel up. Or, I think it's maybe they had bigger plans to make that a more important little mini game.
I was just going to say, yeah, maybe later.
One of the things that they plan with that overmap is to be able to expand. So how we have the galaxy map in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and they can just keep adding more and more planets to it. Right. That's what the overmap does for Dune Awakening. The Haga Basin is the layered map where they only have 40-ish concurrent players able to play per time on that layer. And then there's a dozen or 2 dozen of those layers that feed into one deep desert on the world server. The overmap shows the world server then. So it's your Haga Basin map, but then you're traveling to 2 of the social hub cities or the deep desert. So now you've got your ornithopter. You can take a taxi to a hub city, not to the deep desert, but to a hub city. So you could get there a little bit early. But being able to fly your ornithopter around, full access to the whole Haga Basin map is really another kind of game changer, because now you can fly over all of the desert points and go and get right to some of the points of interest that you need to assault. You can't.
So in your buggy, will that also wake up the sandworm?
Yes.
So like the ornithopter is a way to get around with just
worm free. Yep.
Yeah. No worm issues. Yeah.
Though you might want to land your ornithopter in the open sand to pick up some rare resources that spawned, and then you need to watch for worm sign and take off really quick, or it will eat your ornithopter and it will be permanently gone, which would be sad.
Sad. Yeah. Bad and sad.
Now, everything in the game does decay. It takes damage over time, and you need to keep repairing it. Each time you repair it, it gets a little bit of permanent damage, so that eventually you're just going to have to rebuild all of the parts or build a new one eventually anyway. So it's made to be replaceable. It's not that bad of if you, and people have done this, if you're down in the starter zone and you build your base, one of the things sort of the main quest line has you do is, okay, now it's time to go to Vermilius Gap. Pick up all your stuff. You're going to go build a new base. Go, cross the gap and come meet us there. And then we're going to, you're going to make an advanced base. And then it actually wants you to delete your previous base. So people not kind of like knowing how dangerous that part of the desert is, or crossing at the wrong point where it's even too far for a sand bike, have loaded up all of their worldly possessions in their sand bike trunk, gone across like the long way across the desert gap to Vermilius Gap, and got eaten by a worm. And everything out of their first 4 hours of the game is completely destroyed. Now, it only take them at that point, because now they know what they're doing. It's only going to take them a half hour to replace all of it. So it's not that big a loss, but you can keep losing stuff if you just keep getting eaten by the worm over and over. So don't do it. Don't get eaten by the worm. But yeah, now you got your ornithopter to also get to the hub cities. So I did that. I got my ornithopter. I was pretty sweaty. So I got my ornithopter. I wasn't the most sweaty or the most lead I could have been. There is, where I built my base, someone else built a slightly bigger base up the hill from mine. And while I was still working to try to get my buggy, I kept hearing helicopter sounds, and that person already had their ornithopter. So it was a little bit like every survival game. If you watch Viva La Dirt League, they're still like knocking sticks and rocks together on the beach, And they look down the beach and there's somebody with a jetpack and a machine gun. So there's always those people as well. But I was pretty fast. I've got an ornithopter pretty quickly. Then I took a moment to step back, both like eat food, sleep. This was days. This took me days to get the ornithopter, but I was playing pretty hard for a few days. Still doing a little studio work on the side. Still working out every day. I had family stuff over the weekend, but every free hour I was playing Dune. Ornithopter allowed me to get to the hub cities. So it's Harco City, Harco Village, and Arakeen. So one is an Atreides-aligned city, another is a Harkonnen-aligned city. And that's where a lot of the class trainers and story missions and everything, the Imperial accounting office where you pay taxes for your base. When you have the big bases, you have to pay weekly taxes on them. That's where you pay those taxes. If you want to create a guild, that's where you create your guild. So that's like the main hub cities. And the auction house. The auction house is there. That's where you need to go. You can't do that in the Haga Basin maps. So it was cool to see those, and they're well fleshed out. They're really cool cities. There's like bar and tons of NPCs. Walk around those. It seems very lively. As you walk around, pro tip, if you see anyone running, that's a real player. If you see anyone leisurely walking, that's an NPC. Because everybody looks the same and there's no nameplates. There's no name tags. So otherwise you can't tell. But so all of a sudden I'll be like seeing someone running by. And I'll be like, oh, that's a human. That's not an NPC. That's an actual person. So that's been fun. And then the last zone is the deep desert. The deep desert is, if you think of how it's multiple times bigger than the Haga Basin map, and it's built up into 80 sub quadrants, 81, 9 by 9. So there's the first row of 9 at the bottom of the whole map is PvE protected. So if you like build a base down there in that first row, there's not a lot down there. There's a couple points of interest and the NPC points of interest to raid. And I'd actually raided all of the points of interest there are the shipwrecks, which are our PvP locations. But I went into one and I cleared it out and I got some tier 6 mats. All of the tier 7 stuff is way farther north in the deep desert. That 81 quadrants, each one of them needs to be mapped separately. And that whole area wipes once a week. And it's on Monday. And it's a big event for the whole Coriolis Storm wipe event. In the lead up to the event, so starting at Monday at midnight UTC, so this is about 6 p.m. Central. On Monday, a pre-storm starts. And everywhere for the next 6 hours, everywhere in the game, there's just a whole bunch of sand blowing around. It's not damaging like a sandstorm, but there's a whole bunch of sand blowing around. So it's a real big lead up. It's a big event. You keep getting the countdown timer. Coriolis Storm is on the way. Everybody duck and cover. Because in the deep desert, everything gets wiped then. If you've built anything there, it gets destroyed. If you're in the deep desert during the Coriolis Storm, you die. Also, the whole map basically shuts down and gets rewritten. And they've handcrafted those 81 tiles for the deep desert for each of the resets after the Coriolis Storm. And that gets kind of rewritten every week as an opportunity to have new exploration and new points of interest and new things showing up. The mapping of the deep desert is a little kind of mini game. You have a tool called a probe launcher, and you have to go up to a high point in that quadrant or like in the Haga Basin, 6 zones that are in the Haga Basin, and climb up to a really high point or fly your ornithopter up there and shoot it up in the air. You wait 30 seconds and it maps that zone. So the people that are going to be really competitive in the deep desert are going to have teams of people out there mapping those 81 tiles so that they can get an advanced view of what's out there and where all the new points of interest are and where all the new shipwrecks are and that kind of thing. So that's kind of a fun part of it too. But I went there. It was cool. I didn't do too much of what,
Right.
I didn't play too much in there because I'm still catching up. And I'm not up to that tier as well
Right.
because
You were kind of overstepping, right? So you had to kind of slink around.
there's NPCs and also players. Players could have shot me, but the NPCs also rank up. So each zone, the NPCs are tougher, and they're using higher tiers of weapons and wearing higher tiers of gear. Oh, and have new abilities. So it'll be fun when you start seeing them using like advanced abilities out of the trees. So that has gotten a little bit crazy. I kind of it was tough to clear that one little objective. I only had to kill like a half a dozen NPCs, but they were pretty tough in that one objective. So I was like, no, I need to go back. I need to get up into the Duralumin, more advanced. So sort of like the tier 5 of armor and weapons. And then I'll be ready to go after those tier 6 guys when I have my tier 5 armor and weapons and that kind of thing. So it's cool in that way too. That's another bit of the progression, is being able to kind of rank up your weapons, rank up your armor to not only get more powerful if you're going to fight other players, but to even be able to handle the new zone and the NPCs that are in that zone. So had fun doing that. Did quite a bit of that. Here's an NPC using a flamethrower. Yeah, I got to one of the new zones and this guy's got a flamethrower. They've got a special stasis grenade where they'll throw a grenade at you and it creates a stasis field. So then you're like floating, paralyzed in this. You can still shoot out and shoot at them, but you're kind of like a sitting duck floating in this stasis field. Then you can't like duck and cover or dodge unless you have special abilities. So you start seeing that, and then they hit like poison grenades. I'm like, oh great, now they poison me.
It sounds, like one of the complaints after the open beta was combat, and it sounds like combat continues to change as you get further into the game.
Yes. The main complaint about the combat was the PvE and a couple...
The slow thing.
Right. And the stun lock, being able to get stun locked was kind of thing. And everybody hates that in any game. And
right.
Especially in a PvP game. If you can get stun locked and killed, then that is bad. They've kind of taken care of that. They've given sort of like they've changed the way the stun works.
Yeah, that was more of an unintended.
Yeah.
I meant like the combat in general. People were like, they didn't appreciate the slow, whatever you had to do to break the shield.
Yes.
And that it sounds like that, but that was just the beginning. Sort of like,
right.
When you first start out and you have a dagger and you're killing rats in another game, it's sort of like,
yes,
it wasn't a good view of what combat could be.
In fact, at the point that I'm at now, I don't use a blade. And if I come across a shielded enemy, that is not the technique that I use to break their shield and kill them. I use a special shotgun called a drill shot. So everything is our dart guns. And, maybe you have like poison darts or explosive darts, but it's darts, right? And the way the drill shot works is it's a shotgun. It loads 4 shells, shoots 2 at a time. You shoot it at a shielded target, and the darts stick to them, and you can see like red, like it's doing that thing with the shield, and it burrows into them, and then it hits them. So I've got a unique. And so the uniques are schematics. Once you get a schematic, you can only craft 1 per schematic. So if you want to, craft another one in the future, you got to refine that schematic. And I use this unique drill shot that's a little OP for my level that I found somewhere, and it is awesome. It is great. I love it. So I've got my mouse buttons kind of bound to the back mouse button goes to my drill shot. The front mouse button goes to my rifle, and then keyboard 5, so that's 3, 4, and 5, is my sniper rifle. And my sniper rifle is amazing also. Talk about the high ground. I'll approach any of the points of interest. You got like these enemy NPC bases, and you need to assault them for lots of reasons, story reasons. And there's a piece of crafting material that I'll explain in just a second that you need to get out of these bases. But I'll go to the cliffs above them all the time, get the high ground, and take out my sniper rifle and just be picking off the guys and clearing out the base that way. They'll still see you, and that's when they'll start lobbing the grenades up at you and locking you in the stasis field or poisoning you. So you still need to be careful. But that's changed. That's a weapon that's changed the game for me. So that's been really cool. So then that last part is that progression and the materials. So you're progressing your weapons and your armor because you need to get better weapons and armor as you go from zone to zone. And each of the zones is like a higher tier. The armor is 2 pieces. It's your actual armor pieces and then a device called your shield. And your shield also needs to be upgraded. And your shield, then you've got like you don't take any damage on your armor until your shield goes down. Your shield can go down a couple different ways. So you need to be upgrading your shield. I even argue that that's more important to upgrade than your armor. And then your weapons. The enemies, as I said, there's progression with the enemies. They get harder and harder. They get more and more abilities. I even have come across like mini boss NPCs. If you get into any of the story missions, you get sort of into like an instance to finish out your little story. And you might have like dialogue with a bad guy and then have a boss fight with the bad guy. And there's been a couple of those. Like there was this gross Harkonnen guy who was a cannibal, and I had to fight him 1v1. So that was really cool. And then the materials progression is also part of what's driving you to these different zones and to fighting NPCs and to getting everything, getting your crafting tiers up and advanced crafting stations. And a really cool thing they've done here is bringing in the Dune universe into the crafting tiers and what you're putting together and what you're crafting. So there are about 5 different classes of materials. So it's not just, gathering nodes. Now I need iron. Now I need steel. Now I need silver. And I'm just going to make silver armor. I'm going to make steel armor. I'm going to make iron armor. The 5 materials are the stuff that you pick up off the ground or you mine off the ground, which is scrap metal, rocks, mining nodes, iron, aluminum, some crystals. So you mine that stuff. You can mine it with a hand miner or the buggy miner that I talked about. So there's all of that. Some of the plant fiber you pick up off the ground. So that's one class of material. The second one that's required for everything that you're going to build, most bigger things, is these special parts. And the special parts are NPC parts. And you have to then go assault the NPC bases to get those NPC parts. They're machine parts and particle accelerator, capacitor, flux capacitors. And the flux capacitors only come from those NPC locations. And you can hover over the locations on the map and see which parts drop at which location. And the bigger, the higher the tier of material, the higher tier of zone you need to go assault, and more tougher enemies you need to fight to get those parts. Third, so what did I say? Did I say 5? I think I've listed 4. Maybe there's even more. The fourth is sand, things you pick up off the sand. And there's 2 classes of things that you're just picking up off the sand. One, early in the game, you're picking up what's called flower sand. And it's very, very lightweight sand that you basically turn into silicone blocks. So you're kind of like melting it down in a chemical refiner. So flower sand you pick up off the deep desert sand where the worms are, so you need to be careful collecting it. And you get what's called a static compactor, where if you saw the Dune movies or you read in the book, there's a couple points where they get buried under sand, and they use a static compactor to create a static field that pushes the sand away or allows them to dig a hole and keeps the walls from collapsing in, allows the sand to get compacted. Well, you use your static compactor to pick up all the flower sand. Well, each time you're picking up the flower sand, it generates vibrations, and the worms don't like that. So what you end up doing is picking up some flower sand, pick, worms coming, run back to the rocks, wait for the worm to be done, wait for the worm to pass, go back out there, pick, grab some more sand. There's little bits of flower sand that spawn at random locations. And some of them are closer to rocks, and some of them like might be so close that you can pick up most of the flower sand without calling the worm. Great. Sounds good. However, once a week, Coriolis storm comes, clears the deep desert, but it also changes where all of the node resources spawn in the Haga Basin, which is kind of cool. So you got clever people that have built their bases right next to some like really good resources. Like, hey, look, there's 3 iron nodes and flower sand. I'm putting a base right here. I'll have easy access to all of that. Next week comes around and that's all wiped. And it might be in a different location. So flower sand is one thing you pick off the sand. And then the other thing is spice, right? So it's spice. Spice is a big deal. You need more and more spice in the higher tiers. Spice is going to become a very big deal in like tiers 6 and 7. And you need to harvest spice by using a static compactor to pick it up off the sand, or at industrial levels at the tier 7, that's when you're using special versions of like the ornithopter to drop a sand crawler spice harvester. And so you have a carrier ornithopter. You probably saw this in the videos. Can lower down a spice harvester, harvest the deep desert spice. And that's when you need to have like people luring with thumpers, luring the small worms away. And then the giant grandfather worm eventually comes and eats the whole field in that big ring mouth that's bigger than, like 3 football fields wide. It's amazing. But then the last thing, which continues to be a resource, a more and more important resource the whole time, which is different again than a lot of other survival games, is water. So you don't need to eat any food to survive. You do need to always stay hydrated in the game. Otherwise, you run out of stamina, you can't do anything, you'll die. So you need to stay hydrated. But water is also a crafting resource. And the higher and higher tier of crafting, the more and more water is necessary to manufacture anything. So I just got to, so say you need like 10 milliliters of water to craft an iron ingot. Well, you're going to need 50 milliliters of water to craft a steel ingot. I just got to, then it goes aluminum, then it goes duraluminum. I got to duraluminum and it's 500 milliliters of water. So now you're 2 orders of magnitude more than kind of what you needed at the iron tier. And it's a whole nother line of progression to be, where am I going to get that water? And there are multiple sources of water. You can mix and match. A lot of the streamers will tell you their favorite way, and it's different than other people's. It's like this whole other part of the game around water that they've really built into the mechanics to make that concept of the feel of Dune come alive. No other game where you have to survive by drinking and eating takes the use of water to this degree. They've been really clever with it. I think they've really done a good job. The 3 main ways to get water. One is you can get it off of plants, and that's only at night or in the early morning is the best time, is the optimal time. And at the higher and higher tier, you get what's called a dew harvester. You can have a small dew harvester. You can just lick some off of the leaves yourself to give yourself a little bit of water, just to stay alive. But in those early morning hours, if you have a big industrial dew harvester, you can get a lot of water. And some streamers will say, the only way to get water is the dew harvester. Get a decaliter John, fill up, 10,000 milliliters of water by, 5 patches of, flowers, and you're golden. Other people will say, no, the way you get water is blood extractor. And that's you kill an enemy and you start with like a little scrap metal improvised blood extractor. You're pulling out of them. At the end, you get like a 2-handed giant, looks like an assault cannon from Star Wars: The Old Republic, like a 2-handed assault cannon. And you're like sticking into the body on the ground and sucking out, 1,000 milliliters of blood. And then putting that into a big refining machine that extracts all the water out of that. You can get water traps, passive water evaporators. This is Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. those need to be fueled by filters that you need to have like stacked up and changing out, and they only last a couple hours, a couple real world hours, and then they'll passively generate water. So that's another way that people say, no, what you need to do is you need to have 50 wind traps up. And then the last way, as you progress the story, where you learn about how the Fremen work, each of the Fremen trials unlocks a Fremen ability that you can craft, or a Fremen schematic, like a still tent or a thumper. One of the things you unlock is what's called the Fremen Death Still. And the Fremen Death Still, once you get that, you have the ability to walk up to an NPC you've killed and hold F to pick up their body. And it goes into your inventory. It appears in your inventory. It weighs a lot, so you can only hold one at a time. And it's kind of like wrapped up and mummified like they show in the movies. And then you bring that to the Death Still, you insert it into the Death Still, you sort of like see it under a vapor barrier, and that will extract a lot of water out of that body after an hour. So it's nothing until an hour passes, and then at the end of that hour, it's a lot of water. That's where I get most of my water, is the Death Still. Every once in a while, I'll supplement it with either blood extraction. I have one wind trap going. And then I did do some of the dew extractor with my tier 4 industrial dew scythe, and it is a lot. It's a lot of water. So yeah, I mean, it's like a whole bunch of things. So now that I've sort of like seen all of the ends and sides of the game, I've gotten a much better sense of where all the progression points are. And there's still a lot of PvE RPG stuff that I have to go. I'll still have weeks of RPG stuff to do. Each class trainer has, when you do 3 tiers of unlocking your class trainer, talking to them, doing little side missions for them so that they'll train you. There's 4 of the class trainers, and each one has 3 tiers of missions, and some of them are very involved. There's the main story, and the main story is getting deeper and deeper. My mission is to discover what happened to the Fremen, but there's weird stuff going on. Like, I'm a bigger part of it than for some reason that nobody really understands, and I don't understand yet. And I've gotten pretty far. I've gotten through all 7 of the trials, and it's still a mystery. And there's more happening. And there's political intrigue that's now started up. So I've got a bunch. I'm going to have weeks of that still to go, and that will feed into the end game and the Lancerod and that. There's much more RPG than I expected in this game. It's not just a survival game. There's much more progression of all the different parts. And then I've only scratched the surface. I built a cool base, but it's too small. That's going to be weeks of fun as well. Probably pick a new place on the map, build a big giant base where I can land multiple ornithopters through the big force field walls and have a bunch of fun doing that too. So there you go, Sema. There's my huge rundown. Plenty. I got through plenty, of course, and I'm loving it. You still there, Sema? Did I?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, I was talking, but I had muted
figured.
myself. Yeah. I like the depth of it. And I
Yeah.
liked what you said about the thirst and the water really meaning something
Yes.
more than other games. Yeah, which every game needs to have its thing.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, in V Rising, it was sucking people's blood.
Yeah. Right. So there's every game has its thing. They've done a really good job with the feeling of what the things are in this game, making them really feel like they matter. So like sucking blood in V Rising, it's important because it's a buff, but it's almost like a potion in another game. Whereas water is so integral to this game, it goes a level beyond. Same thing with the vehicles. It's closer to what Ark does with the dinos. Ark has 100 different dinos that you can get, and some of the dinos are merely tools. Some of the dinos kind of change the game a little bit more, but the vehicles here definitely change the game and just open up the game in a much different way each time you get to one of them. Now, I've only played for a week and I've gotten all the way up to my ornithopter, so it's not that long of a progression path, but it definitely changes it in some fun ways. So yeah, they've just done a really good job with so many parts of the progression and the systems and keeping it in universe. I really give them compliments, props, kudos, whatever you want to say, for what they've been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to be out for the next week. So I think we will wrap up now, although we went plenty long anyway. We will not have a show next week. So we will sort of need to take a break, and we'll catch back up the following week. We'll probably be talking about finishing the end of the season for Star Wars: The Old Republic, which will be finishing up for us that are doing the achievements there around that time. I'll be getting back into Dune Awakening some, I'm sure. And then we're going to be ticking towards the end of June, a couple things that we're looking forward to coming out. So,
I mean, speaking of finishing the season, I looked forward, because they publish it, I look forward to the end of June for the DVL bosses. These are special bosses you have to kill for the season. And the 4 that I need, not all, they're not in June.
they're not happening in June, but they'll happen the last week of the season, but they're not.
Yeah, but I just think it just seems random when they're, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder why they land them
Actually,
that way.
I mean, I take it back. I think 2 of them are, but it's
So
just
you
like
won't
it's
be able
not
to finish
next
it
week.
early. You're going to like be pushed. You'll
Right,
have
I'm gonna
everything
be-
else done. You'll just have two dudes you're going to need to kill the last week.
Right.
Yeah, bummer. So that's still like a month away.
Yes.
Yes,
yes,
it's not
but
actually going to end until July. It's
I'm
just
glad that I looked at it, because every week I've been going, oh, I wonder if it's going to be one of mine. And like this week I know it's not. And the next week I know it's not.
yeah.
Then the week after it will be one. But I don't know when the second duo will be coming up, if ever. So
Yeah, interesting. I wonder when they're going to start. I know they're going to have DLC updates. I wonder if they're going to have like seasonal objectives in Dune Awakening.
yeah.
That would be interesting to find out, because I've got the Game Pass, whatever they're calling it, which gets you the DLC as part of the advanced edition or whatever I got. So we'll
Right.
see how that goes later this
Yeah.
summer too.
I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
We shall see. I will probably still be playing some, at least. I'll be in and out, like with everything else, as new things come up. Who knows? Maybe Tales of the Shire is going to be my forever home from when that becomes available. But that is it for today. All the feed and subscribe links are on newoverlords.com, and our videos up on YouTube/newoverlords. Please come chat with us in our Discord at newoverlords.com/Discord. And you can also follow on all the social networks, and we'll keep you up to date there too. And with that, we'll talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.